Good morning. It's going to be probably the first night in Barcelona, so most of you had a good weather in Barcelona and a good night. People are still rolling in, but I think being the first lot, I do expect a little bit of caffeination and a little bit of time for people to come and settle down. So I think, before I get going, first of all, this session is about how enterprises needs to really become proactive in the context of the hybrid multi-cloud infrastructures and how IT can be more a service provider to the business units and how AI can potentially help in the overall theme of IT being proactive, okay? With that, let's take a look at what's going on in the infrastructure in your enterprise today. You have infrastructure from on-prem all the way to cloud, right? The need for the agility in the workloads and the business units asking for the workloads to be spun up very quickly resulted in IT being federated from all the way from edge to public clouds. But when you do that, the transformation doesn't need to be that complex, right? Because now you created a lot of silos and the visibility of the entire infrastructure lacks because cloud is operating with its own command center, then you have your network operating in your own command center and your data centers are, so multiple silos, skill gaps, because DevOps, IT ops, all of them needs to SRE, all of them needs to come together. The approach to kind of bring all of this is one of the most important things that every enterprise is looking into. And in the context of this tool sprawl, technology sprawl, people sprawl, how to make a business unit really deliver and get the services that needs to be delivered to the business service come together, right? That's the most complex thing. So no IT ever wants to be embarrassed by a business unit coming and telling XYZ service is down. They wanted always the first to know. They always wanted to show how they are providing the business services back to the lines of business. That is the most important thing that every enterprise is facing. And in the context of that, if you look at what is taking place in the enterprise is the strategic alignment with the business units where every IT sits with the business unit, understand what the business services that they are critically dependent on, and bring that context of application business service into the infrastructure as opposed to infrastructure being separate from the business services is what the cloud experience that the enterprises are really looking for. And to deliver that, one has to move from reactive to proactive. How do we make an IT organization which is getting in alerts and events coming from the infrastructure and the cloud workloads to become proactive? And to make that proactive, one needs to kind of look at the entire estate in a slightly different way. You need to kind of understand the telemetry coming from all sources of infrastructure, from your branch offices to network that is connecting the branch offices to hybrid infrastructures in the data centers and cloud, and getting all the telemetry to really find AI-powered actionable insights. Actionable insights are elements of issues that you are experiencing in the environment that can be predictably understood because of the machine learning and AI. And then in certain cases, without human being involved, how do we automate and deliver the operations that needs to be ultimately to bring the business service back up. To deliver that and to make that whole framework come in the context of hybrid multi-cloud infrastructures is where HPE, in general invested in this unified hybrid cloud operating model. If you attended yesterday's keynote, there is a lot of discussion around how do we create a unified hybrid cloud operating model. Let's take a look at what's going on in this, right? In this unified approach. Today, the infrastructure is not centralized at one location. You have not only HPE, you have non-HPE gear in your data centers, and you have one or many public cloud providers providing certain business services, as part of your overall infrastructure. On this, there is a runtime that spans bare metal, containers, serverless technologies, right? Including SaaS applications. You may be consuming some SaaS applications as part of your overall operations for delivering IT. On top of this is application stacks. They could be cloud native, they could be AI native, with more AI workloads coming in. And these technologies are coming from different sources. Some of those applications may be your own home-built applications. Some of them may be packaged applications that you deploy on top of this infrastructure that is running on, right? And to do all of this, to come together, you need an operating model. An operating model that brings the agility of a cloud, but control and efficiency of the overall IT that one needs to manage. The most important aspect of this, when you really look at an average enterprise which was running data centers separately, network separately, cloud separately, if you don't run and bring all of that in a unified manner, you as an IT delivery center, you will not be able to kind of find how a business service is impacted when the application performance is impacted. So the operational efficiency to bring all of that in a single integrated place is what we believe a unified cloud operating model really calls for. The true operating model is when all of this is delivered in the context of a business unit or a business service that you are supporting, the application or the business service that is supporting that. So if you look at that, to deliver this end-to-end on top of on-prem, private, and public cloud, the first order of priority is the applications and infrastructure that you are spinning with orchestration, day zero, where you bring a new application either in the form of cloud native, or in the form of a data center driven traditional application. So the day zero provisioning and orchestration is the most important piece. And when you provision, you understand what application you're provisioning with proper tagging and things like that, so that even if it is running in cloud, you know what that application is, so that you can understand the costs, understand the business service availability, and attribute that back to a given line of business. That's day zero, day one. And then day two, which is all about really making sure that those applications that are spun are maintained, managed, and lifecycle maintenance that is required, from patch management to full control of that application. So if you look at the two ends of the spectrum, the first end of the spectrum is bringing the workload. The second end of the application is maintaining that application and managing that application. These two things needs to come together. If you look at the announcements yesterday, one of the things that HPE is assembling to kind of deliver this stack in the context of hybrid multi-cloud is not only organic investments, but inorganic investments that in the form of Morpheus, which does the day zero, day one, and day two is OpsRamp. These two technologies are coming together to give end-to-end full lifecycle management from cradle to grave, the entire application that needs to be managed. When you do that and create proper application KPIs that you could expose as dashboards to the lines of business, then your end customers, every IT organization's end customers are their business units. And that requires the tenancy models that most individual tools may not provide today. Each business unit potentially needs to be treated as a tenant. In some cases, enterprises do acquisitions, and an acquired company needs to be treated as a tenant with shared services coming from central IT. The transformation of central IT in the context of hybrid multi-cloud to a service provider really requires a framework that is not duct taping old legacy tools. You need to really think about how to create those tenancy models, how to create the tiering that is needed where the infrastructure could be anywhere, could be in branch offices, could be in public cloud, it could be anywhere, but you need to kind of really create the tenancy model. That's what we call and we consider hybrid cloud operating model. And when you do that, you not only address the needs of DevOps, where an application is through CI/CD is getting spun in the private or public cloud, to IT ops, the green ops, the sustainability that one needs to kind of deliver, to kind of understand where the footprint is, and bringing the cost in the form of visibility to what each of these applications is costing in an enterprise. Now, let's go take a look at what this really means in a real world. And to do that, I would like to kind of invite a good friend, a Barcelona native, Alberto Valero from NTT Data. Alberto?
How are you?
Good. It is strange to kind of invite, into your own hometown, and you settle back in
Yes.
Barcelona. Maybe to start with, you've been a strategic thinker and a strategic exec, and a number of service providers, large system integrators, and drove transformation to a lot of enterprises. Maybe introduce yourself, your role, your new capacity with which you moved back to Barcelona.
Sure. Thank you, Varma. Thank you, everyone, for attending here today. So I grew up in this industry from the trenches in IT operations, and through that I've been working in IT services providers, always doing cloud and infrastructure services. So I've been seeing the journey. Nowadays, I'm in a crusade to actually digitize operations across Spain, Portugal, Latin America, through my role in NTT Data as head of IT governance, because I want to really infuse AI into operations, as I've seen it working and I've seen it making some magic, and I think it's absolutely necessary. So it's a crusade.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Great to see you back here in Barcelona. With your role as an exec at many of the system integrators, you came across a number of changes, number of transformations during the enterprises, that outsourced to the service provider, as well as their own transformation in IT operations. Speak a little bit about what you are seeing as the core objectives from, enterprises when they look into a service provider like, where you were, from an IT operations perspective. What is their priorities?
Well, the priorities are changing dramatically fast. And why is that happening? Is because the digital intensity is growing exponentially. Businesses are no longer using digital technologies, they are becoming digital businesses. And when that happens, tolerance to faults tends to be zero. With that in mind, and the velocity of changes happening from digital engineering using AI to AI-led digital engineering, the traditional way of running IT operations is no longer valid. period. I mean, we cannot, I remember the days, I'm sure many of you have been there in the trenches where you had a certificate that was expired and then pop, web down, or backups that were failing, or patching that was incomplete, or servers not being monitored even. I mean, that's the day-by-day operations in the traditional world. We cannot follow the hybrid cloud environments, which are actually transitioning more and more faster to digital with the traditional ways of working. What does that mean from an expectation point of view? It means that what customers are after is business context, data-driven, performance-led and continuous improvement kind of centric operations, where SLAs are becoming thing of the past. SLAs are, in my opinion, dead. Even SLBs, service level bullshits, because what we really expect from an IT service provider is adaptability and total performance. So the three things that customers are after are total insight. I need to be on top of my environment, and not you, me as a customer. Everyone needs to be shared, needs to be real time. So total insight, be on top of the game. Second, total speed. So growing and growing and growing acceleration in the service. And the number three is total uptime, which is, for me, the most important one. So when we are running IT operations, we are not running branches of the forest, we are running the forest. And the forest is an ecosystem with a balance and needs to be regenerating. And if you have that in mind, then you will give freedom to IT operations leaders, which can then sit in front of their businesses, stand strong, and show them that they are on top of the game.
I think you summarized it well. You know, the reason why the so-called shadow IT started is because enterprises, when they are looking for their workloads and the applications that they need to spin up, when IT is not reacting fast with their traditional IT cycles of bringing the hardware and stacking up the infrastructure, they used the credit card to swipe quickly and bring the workload in the cloud, and that the agility that the businesses are demanded, and pandemic really, you saw in pandemic, every business which was not digital became truly digital, right? And that is a fundamental shift coming from business units forcing IT to go where they need to go.
Exactly, and it's a good point. What's happening is that then new silos are getting created. With all this DevOps, SecOps, BizOps trend, this shadow IT is building additional branches in the forest, if you are with me with the forest analogy. And the ecosystem is interconnected. They are architecture with data flows and process flows that need to be happening across all levels. And that, let's say, integrity, that holistic view for full stack observability, for full stack control in a hybrid and digitally growing environment is what requires that we somehow simplify that complexity.
Yeah, if you look at it, Alberto, the transformation in many ways is realistic. But to kind of make that happen, right, it's not going to kind of overnight, you can't break all the silos, you have data centers, you have branch offices, you have NOC, the old traditional looking at network in a separate way, the cloud workloads are coming separate. It's not going to happen overnight, right?
No.
So what is a realistic way for an enterprise to do this transformation?
Good question. It's a journey. So there is a Chinese proverb that says that 1,000 miles journey starts with one step. And in the case of adopting this new paradigm of AIOps, it starts only with one step. It's very simple. We have this tendency to think that we think transformations, we think implementations, we think waterfall still very often, and that is completely unrealistic. because these journeys are made of learning, adoption, growing, especially when you're introducing a data-driven journey with machine learning capabilities. People need to be part of the journey and they need to learn. How do you start this journey? The first thing is once you recognize that there is a new way of doing operations, which is digitally enabled, AI-powered, and which is agile in nature. And I don't mean agile like in an academic sense of agile. I mean agile with that hyper-synchronized teams, highly intensity, being on top of the backlogs or ahead of the backlogs. So we're talking about pipelines and pulling the work instead of waiting for the work to be pushed over the wall to you. And cross-skill teams, open and transparent collaboration. All these principles which are building teams of problem solvers can be powered by AIOps platforms as well. Without AIOps platforms, you cannot really get the insights that you need to do that. But once you do that, you need to compete. You need to compete to be better. You need to compete into that journey about total performance. So that starts with simply recognizing that, understanding that the kind of site reliability principles are valid for a hybrid realm as well, where problem solving is helped through automation. So you automate, you are seeking zero touch. In your pursuit of zero touch, you're going to find zero downtime kind of paradigm. And once you do that, you just need to start deploying the AIOps. Deploying the AIOps is a matter of weeks, believe it or not, because it sits on top of everything and you can just start infusing data. Without the data, there's no paradise, is what I say. So if you start throwing data, and you understand that observability is about gathering data so it can be exploited versus the old-fashioned monitoring, then you're taking the first step from monitoring to observability. Once you understand that the observability is going to bring you insight, actionable insight, then you're going to get into the automation journey, and not just automation, but event-driven automation with intelligence at hand. So that journey takes a few weeks. After a couple of months, you start seeing quite remarkable results. I remember when I started implementing OpsRamp in customers that I was thinking, this is not going to deliver results until maybe 1 year. And then the reality is that it delivers results in few months. Like in a matter of 4 months, you can see already a strong change from the very beginning of doing the service discovery and service mapping and getting the first data, historical data into the system. Then you start getting already ahead of the curve. And then from there, it's a continued journey. So continuous learning. Don't be afraid to take the first step. This is not a huge implementation. This is just a small deployment, and then practice, practice, practice. Rituals, rituals, rituals. Hyper-synchronized teams, which are hybrid in nature and which adopt performance and availability-centric way of running operations.
That's a very good point. You know, you brought up, you used AIOps multiple times in that. And as you know, the world in tool space, everyone claims AIOps,
yes.
right? So they have AIOps for alert. There are interpretation of AIOps where alert correlation companies call it AIOps. There are interpretation of AIOps where, you know, when you are, because AI is in everything, right? You know, in a network, you know, you see many of these large original equipment manufacturers using AI mechanisms to kind of determine, you know, if the network is performing to its level and all. So AIOps is a broad coined word today. And what are the realistic technologies that you see that can bring these things together, right? You know, there are silos of AI,
right,
from correlation tools to networking tools using AI. So how do you see, you know, major technologies that, you know, that you bring together to take this journey?
This is really an annoying thing, and it's. I mean, I think that the industry tends to find names that are cool. They are a hype, and then everyone claims that they have that, and so everyone gets very confused in the customer side, in the service provider side. For me, the most important thing is to find breadth, like full life cycle of a journey, from the perspective of from discovery to data ingestion, data normalization, using big data techniques, then machine learning algorithms, which are specialized in IT operations. So we're talking about alert correlation, noise elimination through dynamic thresholding. Then you do anomaly detection, then you do probable root cause, then you do remediation. And as an outcome, you're going to get real-time insights and recommendations for automation. That full journey, it's a matter of breadth. Many of those so-claimed AIOps companies are starting from a different angle, from a different point of specialization, and they are not bringing the simplicity layer that OpsRamp brings, which is easy to adopt, which provides multi-tenant capabilities. And one of the other things, we live in a world of engineers. I'm not an engineer myself. That's why I'm a kind of a black sheep in this world. But engineers tend to want to go so deep. So when they compare capabilities, they say this goes deeper, or this goes, and they don't think about the complications and complexity of that depth compared to the need of adoption by humans. So when you think about humans and change together, it requires simple starts with breadth, and depth comes later. What I found in OpsRamp is that the positioning, the ambition is about the breadth, and the capabilities to go deep are also there, but can be waiting until the right time comes for them to show that. But for me, operational integrity, end-to-end, is the #1 step. You need to get in control of your data through some layer, somehow I call it intelligence hub, that OpsRamp can play that role. And once you do that, then you can start continuing, getting deeper and doing your daily gymnastics.
Thank you. No, I think you have gone through my last question. Have you gone through this multiple times, this transformation journey? Do you have any recommendations or what people need to watch out, right?
Yes.
Any best practices that you did and the warnings that you have probably have for an enterprise who wants to take this kind of a journey?
Yes, one very essential one, my friends. #1, technologies don't do magic on their own. Technologies, even OpsRamp being as good as it is not going to do the trick. So just implementing the tools, and now I have AIOps, the technology is going only to be a companion to your journey to digital operations, agile operations. So it's a mixture between an operating model, way of working, and even the operating model doesn't do the trick either. It's about practice. Remember, when you register into a gym club, you don't get stronger just by being registered. I've tried that, trust me, it doesn't work. You need to go to the gym every day, or day in, day out, day in, day out. The same happens to adopting agile in your operations and these new principles of hybrid site reliability engineering. You need to do that. You need to understand that the journey starts with one step. Also, don't be afraid. It cannot get any worse. There's no risk. The risk is not doing it. I cannot even believe how we are still running blind, IT operations running blind with a cockpit full of noise, and which basically means black. And they are like doing their best and having a miserable life. I'm after IT operational autonomy, which will bring IT operational freedom, which will eventually take you to operational nirvana through autonomous operations. And that is a journey that needs to start as soon as possible so you can grow the maturity through practice.
No, you summarized it exceptionally well. By the way, on the joking, I had 3 memberships for 3 of those gyms, and I never go to any of them, anyone. So,
that's like some people have 3 tools, and they are there sleeping, waiting for something to happen, and they're like, why am I not getting stronger or smarter?
No. Thank you for being on with me and sharing your advice and sharing your thoughts. Appreciate our partnership and looking forward to bringing this to more enterprises in this region.
Let's go for the crusade. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think, if you look at what Alberto said, enterprises, when in many ways, this is what the journey is. In our mind, when cloud adoption was not there 7, 8 years ago, it started with monitoring tools. Many of you have one more tool in monitoring than what you potentially need, right? So that the journey started with a tool sprawl of a lot of monitoring tools. And what did they do? They basically looked at the performance and gave some incidents. In many cases, created a lot of noise too. That's version 1.0, where it's reactive and you have to do the instrumentation to get the monitoring. Then in the last 6, 7 years, the concept of observability came into play. The observability is all about looking at a holistic picture of not just looking at in silos, but look at in the context of what you are really trying to kind of find that probable root cause or that anomaly that you are doing by looking at the context of logs, metrics, traces, all of that coming together to take a little bit more proactive in terms of what needs to be done for keeping that business service up. What in our mind is the third incarnation of this is where we take this journey towards autonomous operations. Why is this more relevant today than ever before? That's because in our mind, AI is playing a big role, just like AI is playing a big role in a number of areas of call centers and the human touch, human intensive operations where you can really do insights. Similarly, in our mind, AI is going to play a major role in operations, and it will drive towards autonomous operations. And the first step towards that, in my view, is started already 5, 6 years ago, even before Gen AI came into picture. If you look at the journey, to do that, the first and most important priority is to kind of really do a full-blown observability. And once you get a full-blown observability of your entire stack of resources, whether it is on-prem, private, or public cloud, analyzing the data, you collect an incredible amount of data when you do observability. The reason why observability became so popular in terms of telemetry, compared to monitoring data is because you are collecting an incredible amount of telemetry data. And when you collect that amount of telemetry data, and I think Alberto referred to this, large amounts of volumes of data, you really analyze the data to find actionable insights. That's the analysis piece. Then once you get the analysis piece, you find the critical actions that one can either do automation through workflows or remediation of those incidents, because you have enough intelligence built into the systems to bring that agility and control and efficiency that an enterprise really needs for those business services. To do that, I think the elements of these things cannot stay in silos. You cannot have an observability tool being separate from an AI-powered analytics tool being separate from an autonomous operations or automation being separate. If you don't bring them together and you don't know the topology of the infrastructure that is supporting a business application and make the topology and the telemetry data to do the actual analysis job, you will be still seeing these silos, right? Just taking a bunch of alerts and signals, alerts and events, and making those alerts with text signatures to find a signal among the noise will only give certain amount of things. You cannot use that for real automation. So the only way that one could really bring all of this, the automation, is when you bring the entire infrastructure from on-prem private to public clouds, getting all of that telemetry data together into one integrated stack and then do the analysis based on the topology and application footprints that are running on it. To deliver that, so you really need to kind of take a different approach than being in the silos. That's exactly what every enterprise is looking for right now, right? How do you detect an issue? How do you investigate an issue? How do you remediate that thing with AI machine learning assisted capabilities that one could potentially use today, because the algorithms, the machine learning, and the GPU powers exist in the enterprise today to be able to kind of capture this. To deliver that, let me talk about this, right? What did OpsRamp and what did we do in the last 5-6 years? The journey in AI in OpsRamp started a long time before even Gen AI came into picture. Most of the machine learning was based on patterns in 5-6 years ago. There are a lot of machine learning algorithms that can detect based on learning from the patterns that are observed. So that's the bottom layer that you see: auto grouping, change detection, anomaly detection, alert correlations. What did they do? They basically allowed the noise in the IT environment to be reduced, right? That's the first wave of AI machine learning algorithms that were applied. The second wave on top of that is the deep learning, where you use RNNs to look at the data in a different way. The data that is needed for the deep learning is not just alerts and signals. You need to look at the telemetry data and really understand the entire observability output that coming from logs, metrics, and traces to find the probable root cause and potentially find patterns for the first time, even though it was not previously repeated, even though it is coming for the first time, one could really find those anomalies, even though it was not learned before. That's where the RNNs and bringing those deep learning algorithms is going to be the second layer. The third layer with Gen AI in the last couple of years is being able to kind of bring that natural language and the foundational models that are mainly meant for not the foundational models that got created with text and understanding the web and giving the answers around what you are seeing, but the foundational models that are designed for time series data, and fine-tuning those models and finding ways to really determine how to bring that context that is needed for automation. So that's where the investments that we at OpsRamp has been doing. The first incarnation, we announced this in summer. The first incarnation of our Gen AI assisted thing is to create a copilot to allow the dashboards that you see in OpsRamp. That's generally available. But where we are taking that to the next level is where we use the deep learning and Gen AI combination to ultimately to give the dashboards, the visibility, the queries that one could ask to IT to be able to kind of give that business service context. That's where we have been making a lot of investments, and you will see in the coming 6 months, and I think some of them are available. Some of these capabilities will be coming up in the next 2 quarters to really give that zero-shot alerting and deep learning-based mechanisms to kind of give the AI that is needed for being operations more efficient than ever before, and trying to kind of drive towards autonomous. To do that, I think the number one thing is recognizing that an infrastructure for an enterprise is not homogeneous. So being able to kind of provide a policy-driven telemetry to capture all the infrastructure that you have. And one of the key pieces that we are very, very proud in terms of maintaining our vendor neutrality, even though OpsRamp is now part of HPE. We've been integrating and supporting all non-HPE, multi-vendor estates out there. We have 3,000 plus integrations. We recognize that you will have non-HPE, and we recognize your estates are multi-vendor. So being able to maintain those integrations and bring all of that telemetry data, observability data, to create that command center, we call digital command center. How is the digital command center different from the traditional NOCs? The digital command center in our mind is different from a perspective that it is business service led. You onboard your tenants. Each tenant is a business unit or a business application. In a digital command center, you onboard your applications and business services as tenants and understand those tenants from a perspective of the observability data that is coming either natively. In some cases, OpsRamp can natively create that observability data. In some cases, the data may be coming from external sources, which is why those integrations exist. So bringing all of that together to create a business service context that you can expose to lines of business on the top. So a successful implementation of an OpsRamp, in my view, is when an IT leader like you can potentially mount a 75-inch monitor to your business unit saying that here is what IT is delivering to you. Don't show them alerts and events and things like that. Show the KPIs that the business service is asking for. Is my retail branch office of my large, grocery chain, is that running okay? How many stores are up? How many stores are down? That is when IT is really digital ops first. Until then, I don't believe, you and I, and as a team here, will really earn the trust of what businesses are looking in the context of digital and the digitization. So to do that, I think, what OpsRamp really assembled is the three fundamental pieces that are required to create that command center. In our mind, the first one is discovering across your edge to multi-cloud estates, being able to create a single pane of glass and observe all the instrumentation that you need to get for creating that observability, unified observability. That's number one. Number two is AI-powered analytics, which is where we talked about in depth on all the observability data, what we have been doing, both with traditional machine learning, deep learning, and Gen AI frameworks to find and predict those incidents before they come. Number two. Number three, take all of that intelligence to drive an automation. And when you do that, you will see the results and return on investment naturally. Many IT organizations that I go, their number one thing that they say is they don't have 100% visibility to their estate. Number two, they're not the first to know. In most cases, many of these applications are managed in silos. That's the reason why the IT is not the first to know, right? So to do that, you need to kind of really look at in a different way, and that's what OpsRamp brings to the table in one single integrated thing. When you successfully implement, because of the multi-tenancy and multi-tiering, it is not only you being able to kind of make IT act like a service provider, but if you are a service provider, you can have multiple enterprises that you can provide shared services, right? So this multi-tiering and multi-tenancy will allow an enterprise to become a digital ops command center. So with that, I would like to kind of invite Adrian to show a quick demo of how this looks like, what the application looks like. Adrian?
Thanks, Varma. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll just set my timer so I don't take too long on this, because otherwise I might ramble on a bit. But so hi everybody, I'm Adrian Hill. I'm a pre-sales solution architect with OpsRamp. Been with, HPE OpsRamp, as I should say now. So been with the company for about 4 years. Before that, working with other companies in the ITOM space and the ITSM space. So I'm here today just to run through a very quick demonstration of OpsRamp. I'm just going to make sure that everything's in line and working, so bear with me 2 seconds. Okay. It has a habit of timing me out, so I've got to re-log into everywhere and get everything back up and running. So I think during that talk and Varma's presentation, there was a lot of mention about the multi-tenancy aspect and how OpsRamp can support MSPs and enterprises through that aspect. I'm just going to go into another area of here. So one of the key things about OpsRamp is this multi-tenancy. So what we're looking at here is really a client, or you can consider it to be maybe a business unit within your organization or a business department, something that you want to manage effectively, sort of more in isolation, if you like, but manage it as a separate entity. But also manage it from an aspect of standardization. So being able to apply policies, monitoring templates, integrations that are configured at the partner level and then are consistently applied across all your business units or departments. Okay, so that's really where multi-tenancy comes into the OpsRamp platform and where you can make real use and efficiency gains by using the multi-tenancy aspect of the platform. Now, one of the things that Varma touched on in his slideware was this multi-cloud, multi-vendor HPE support, going through the stacks of the unified operation model. So I'm just going to quickly show some of the breadth of what we do bring into the environment. So this is, as I said, is a demo, call it a demo business unit, okay, that we've got here. And you can see here that we've got things around the public cloud. So we've got public clouds integrated into OpsRamp. If you click on one of those, you get an indication of the type of services that we bring back from, in this case, AWS. So bringing back all of that information from your public cloud through the public cloud subscription into OpsRamp and providing that sort of monitoring capability, visibility of the services that you've got out there within your estate. Okay. Going down onto things maybe on the storage side. So this would be more, if you like, on-premise storage. So HPE, what you can see there, HPE, NetApp. Obviously, we support other vendors as well. So going on to that, not being HPE specific, but still having that vendor neutrality, which is really important as you go through with OpsRamp on your observability, sort of journey, if you like, or transformation. But this is, good stuff. It provides, if you like, the discovery elements, going through to maybe topology, and the base monitoring side. But that's really only part of the observability stack. So what I was going to show you very quickly here is on the virtualization area, just how we can leverage some of this data and then drill down into it. So this is a VMware environment. Clicking on the top there, you just go down to the house, and you can quickly see, I'm only going to do this once, just for the topology side of things, how you can leverage the topology that we automatically bring in through our discovery. And this will look a bit like a spider's web, but bear with me. So this is the landscape of this ESX server, the VMs that it supports, the data stores that are attached to it. So really useful, not just from a monitoring perspective or an observability perspective, but also from a change perspective as well. So understanding what impact that ESX server, taking that ESX server will have on your environment, potentially what services it will impact, because obviously the VMs are running there, they're supporting business services. So having that context, which is really useful from a change viewpoint, but also from an incident issue analysis viewpoint as well, having that to front of mind. Okay. So just carrying on, I think Varma mentioned the integration side of things and the fact that we've got 3,000 plus integrations now. What I just wanted to bring up here was the breadth of the integration types that we have. So this is, again, just looking at storage, storage vendors that we support, the storage solutions that we support. Yes, there are a lot of HPE ones on there, but as you can see, we also have stuff around the Dell storage or EMC, Hitachi, Fujitsu, etc. So as I said, keeping that vendor agnostic view, if you like. But I think going on to the next bit of this journey, if you like, is that these are integrations. They're great. They supply the discovery. They supply the topology. They supply auto monitoring through device management policies. But there are two other elements, or three other elements that Varma touched on in terms of the observability side of things, which are logs, traces, and also network flows. Okay, so just a brief intro to those, and then at the end of this sort of demo, I'll just show you how we bring that all together in terms of a service dashboard. So again, what Varma said beforehand, and then how you can use that service dashboard to, first of all, visualize what's happening with the service, but also potentially to drive automation as well. Okay. So logs. So logs are ingested by OpsRamp automatically. So as soon as you deploy an OpsRamp agent, it will recognize what applications, what OS it is, and start bringing log messages back from those areas. And then start analyzing those automatically to create metrics, to do alerting based on sort of specific messages or anomalies that we detect within the message streams. But as I say, automatically as you do that. But I think one of the other things that is just as important is your custom applications. Not everybody uses out-of-the-box application stacks. You might have an application that writes to a specific log file that you do want to bring into this as well. So having that capability within log management is also there to define your custom application definition. So that's really where you're saying that if I see this log file or this log directory existing on a server, I know this application is there, so I will then go and ingest those log file messages. So, really key aspect of how you bring logs up into the central platform. And then the last bit on sort of the traditional, I would say, observability stack would be the tracing element. Okay. So again, tracing in terms of understanding your microservices. So this is using OpenTelemetry for people that are familiar with that. Understanding the layout of your containerized environment, the microservices that it's supporting, automatically generating and bringing back those services, so you can look at those in terms of the traces and spans that we brought back through the OpenTelemetry collector. Okay. And giving you some high-level indicators around latency, error rates, etc. And again, what you're seeing on here is metrics that we can use and utilize within dashboarding capabilities within the product. So another key area of the observability stack that you need to have to be able to cover the landscape and understand how your applications are performing. Okay, so I mentioned one other area as well, which is sort of something that sometimes people don't really think about in terms of observability is the network layer. Being able to collect network flows, so coming from Cisco devices or coming from through S-Flow or IPFix, is really important in being able to understand how your servers, how your applications are talking to each other, and the traffic flow between those, so you can detect anomalies or spikes within that flow traffic. Obviously, sometimes a spike is good because it could mean that you just got loads and loads of sales that are going on and stuff like that. So it's not so much of a problem, but you do need to be aware that those things are happening. Okay, so now we've got the standard discovery, we've got logs, we've got traces, we've got net flow data. So what do we do with that? Varma alluded to the fact of using sort of AI and autonomous operations to drive insights into the data that we've collected, but also to display it in terms of maybe a service dashboard. Sorry if it's a bit glary. light mode. But you see here, this is the e-commerce or sample e-commerce application. So this one was the one that we're referring back to within the tracing element when I showed you that. So this is just bringing all of that information forward onto a dashboard where you can quickly identify if there are issues with it, whether we've got any alerts that are being created in the background, and also the status of the actual e-commerce system itself, or the business service. So again, Varma mentioned this in terms of being able to map out a business service, map out the elements. So you're looking really here at like the business service, the technical services, and the resources that underpin it, and how those are impacted. So this can be like a direct impact. Unfortunately, it's gone green at the moment. But it can show you direct impact, so as soon as something goes wrong, it directly impacts the business service at the top level, or it could be indirect, which means it has a sort of scaling upwards or downwards. So it's impacted, but it's not a serious problem to deal with at the moment. So if you've got something else to go and deal with, then deal with that. Okay. And then the last bit would be the automation side. So I'm just going to show you some example automation. Now, these can be run automatically through us recognizing events that are occurring within the system. So, go and remediate something or go and get some more information that you might want to have to diagnose the issue. But also can be leveraged by operations themselves and can be run manually based on something happening. So giving the flexibility there to fully automate something or to maybe semi-automate it while you're going through that process of understanding how these things work. Okay. So going back to Varma's slide, just to wrap up. So, the bottom layer is the HPE, the multi-cloud, the multi-vendor. Yeah, we've got a really good story there. We've got loads of integrations, and we've got full coverage of that layer. The same for the virtualization stacks and the cloud native. AI native is coming really down the road. We've got some stuff in there already. But I think what this doesn't really show is that full stack observability side. So getting the logs, getting the traces, getting the NPM flow data or the net flow data, and then bringing that in and making sense of it. So with that, I think my demonstration's finished. If you want more information, then please come to booth 703, which is the OpsRamp booth. Happy to talk through this in more detail with yourselves. And also there's hands-on labs as well. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. I think, seeing is believing. And there are enterprises who potentially, have a large group of tools. And we don't walk into an enterprise saying that you have to go rip and replace every tool that you have. It's not possible. So my request, if you are interested in, is to engage. And we will come with a mechanism to understand what needs to be done to deliver what has been promised here or what you have seen in a way. Today, OpsRamp is available in 2 modes. You can take subscription as a standalone from HPE. If you are in a geography where HPE account execs or specialists can bring OpsRamp specialists to do a standalone OpsRamp mode for you. But if you are a GreenLake and HPE customer, there are pieces of OpsRamp technology that is embedded into a number of things that you are doing with HPE. It is embedded into Complete Care. If you are a Complete Care customer, if you are a GreenLake customer, GreenLake Flex carries OpsRamp. And if you are an Aruba customer, Aruba carries multi-vendor observability through Aruba, through OpsRamp into it. So there are a number of ways. If you are a private cloud customer, OpsRamp is embedded into private cloud. But in all these cases on the right-hand side, it is covering only the estate that HPE is providing under those solutions. But if you wanted to expand that beyond HPE-provided solutions, that's where you need to kind of get the standalone OpsRamp subscription. There are a number of places that you could get a lot more information. There are I think 1:30 or something like that, there is a big demo, and if you wanted to do a detailed demo, you can go to the booth, and there are a lot of OpsRamp personnel that can provide that. With that, I wanted to kind of end and have a great rest of the day, great rest of the show. Look forward to engaging in the coming days with many of you.